All right, we're live. All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to February's meeting of the Advisory Committee on Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Human Rights. We will go ahead and start this evening. We have one new member with us, but we'll start with a roll call. Remind me, if we do not have someone on Zoom, I don't need to
We do.
Oh, Katie. All right. We'll wait for her to come in.
I'm here. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Hi, Robert.
I had issues getting the link to work, so sorry, Courtney. Ignore my email.
Oh, no worries. Just went perfect. I sure will. All right.
Does the little one get a vote?
Yes, yes. Robert is a voting member.
Huge.
2 points for cuteness. All right, well, we will go ahead and get started. I will call roll and obviously please say, yay if you're here, yes if you're here. And then I'd love to give a moment for our new member afterwards to introduce himself, but we'll start with the roll. So Katie Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. Adam Baker.
Here.
Suzette Furrow.
Here.
Sharon Weber.
Here.
Shane Boys.
Present.
All right, way to mix it up. Mark Roth.
Here.
Amazing. I'm Katie Bryden. I am here. Teresa Fallon and Raylan Burke have both been excused from this evening's meeting, but we also have with us our City Council liaison, Councilor Michael Beck, and our Assistant City Manager, Courtney O'Donnell. Thank you for being here this evening. And yes, we have a new member that I'm excited has joined us. So Adam, if you would like to take a minute just to introduce yourself, any information you think would be relevant, we would love to welcome you.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Adam Baker. I'm excited to join this committee and be on a committee for the first time. My preferred pronouns are they, them. I have a deep advocacy for just the city of Bangor that I love so much that I've lived in, and I've been born in here for 27 years. And my main things are just human rights as a baseline, empathy. I LGBTQ plus community that I'm a part of myself is very close to me, and just I'm happy to be here and to make it better for Bangor. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Welcome. All right. So now is the time that we have set aside for public comment. I don't see anyone in Zoom or in the room, so I'll save the spiel. There was an email that came to us that actually came through the city manager, and it was asked to be forwarded along to us, and the city manager recommended that we bring it up during our public comment discussion. If that's okay, yes, we'll share it. We'll talk about it now quickly because I think it's just a matter of identifying how we want to move forward with this individual's request of us, and then we can determine how to move forward and then take our vote of the minutes and then get into committee business. Does that sound good to everyone? All right, so we received an email, rather the city manager did, and Manager Lear forwarded it to myself and Shane. And essentially, it is from a gentleman in Bangor named Jason Goodrich. He is a community member who is heavily engaged in the unhoused population, helping serve and provide resources. And he wrote asking whether our committee would consider making a recommendation to the city council regarding the structure of their proposed standing committee on homelessness and affordable housing. Specifically, he asked that we encourage the city to guarantee voting seats along with some structural supports for people with lived experience of homelessness so that their participation is meaningful and really embedded in the governance structure of that committee from the start. So the city manager said, you know, while we can't officially add this to the agenda because the agenda has been set, this can be something that's brought up in public comment, which we responded and said that was how we would move forward with this. For me personally, I would love, if possible, to get an update from our council liaison on the standing committee on homelessness and affordable housing. And then maybe we could all determine if this is something that we would want to formally take up, if we would want to wait for a council referral, if there's a way that we could, a mechanism for offering informal feedback. He suggested in the email that we request or recommend 3 positions for people with lived experience of being homeless or that maybe are either currently unhoused or have been unhoused in the past. I don't know how many individuals have been identified for the standing committee, so maybe we could start with an overall update on how that's going and what your thoughts are. Maybe the council has already discussed this, and then I'd love to hear everyone's feedback.
Sure. So on the March 2nd last GovOps meeting we just had, we talked about the committee and the fact that there's a lot of overlap between, you know, all the positions and the fact that we've got the mission of homelessness and the mission of housing. And so the consensus was reached that we're better off having 2 committees. One's just for homelessness, one's just for housing. And so we're actually going to discuss the homelessness committee at the March 2nd GovOps. And then we'll discuss the housing committee at the April 6th GovOps. So this way here, they're able to both do their missions, because there's a lot of, because the way we see it, there'll be a lot of thumb twiddling when we're talking about, you know, development and everything else. And then when we actually talk about a homelessness plan, there's a lot of thumb twiddling the other way. This way here, you know, both committees can move forward with their mission. And of course, the mission that we're council currently is set to task the homelessness committee with is, what's our strategy? What's our strategic plan? So that's hopefully what will come out of the March 2nd meeting. And that's what we're slated to have that discussion. As far as lived experience goes, that was also brought up. And the consensus is that at first, you know, we had talked about, you know, making it part of the code that we're going to have this many positions for lived experience, but there was some concern shared that what happens if you don't find the folks that are fill those roles, and then you kind of hold up all of the work. So what if we set it as a goal as part of, you know, when we're doing the interviews in personnel committee, you know, we're looking for at least 3 or 4 or whatever number council lands on. That's our goal to do, rather than saying hard in the ordinance, it has to be this or nothing. So that's where we stand right now.
Thank you very much for that update. So the affordable housing committee will be discussed on the 6th?
So the homelessness piece will be the March 2nd, and then the housing piece will be April 6th.
April 6th. And I'm so sorry, can you just confirm, like, during those meetings, is it more like developing the strategic plan for identifying individuals?
So it's going to be looking at the actual ordinances of the structure. You know, this is what we're, this is what we're going to vote into. Just like this committee had to have an ordinance put in, same thing. These will need ordinances as well. And you know, for example, one of the other things we'll talk about with the homelessness committee, for example, is, you know, there may be 20 different, you know, job titles that would fit this committee, but we aren't gonna build a committee of 20 people. So rather than, the original idea of having it, hey, you have to have these exact number of people with these exact titles, we're gonna have a pool, let's say 20 acceptable titles that we can pull from. And so when people apply or get nominated, as long as they fit somewhere within that pool, then they can end up going into the body of 9, 10, 11, whatever the number we land on is.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. I really appreciate it. So now, per this email and request, I would love to, knowing what you've heard from Counselor Beck about what's being decided, what are your thoughts in terms of responding to Mr. Goodrich? Is this something that, like I said, we would like to formally take up? Is this something that we would like to informally request? Or again, what other mechanisms could there be for us to support, or just say, the council's got this and move on? I'd love to hear people's thoughts.
I feel like it's something I personally might want to talk to you about.
Job committees. I'm just kidding.
Well, not
Bounties.
not necessarily, but actually maybe talking to you about if and when that committee gets going. I do have personal,
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of it. I mean, it was life circumstances, but I've been homeless for years with a daughter in tow. I've been, and I know everybody assumes that because you're homeless, you're an addict. I didn't relapse during that time, and I was so proud of myself that I continued on in my recovery journey. And, it's so easy for people to backslide, and, and now I serve the homeless. So it's just like a huge, necessarily mean I know they do go hand in hand a lot, but
Yeah.
So
That's an important.
that would be another committee that I feel like would be
Yeah.
understand. They just don't understand. I mean, it's not always the choice. It could happen to anybody, trust me, at any time.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a statistic out there, right? That like something absurd, like 60% of, adults are 2 paychecks away from not being able to.
And nobody would help. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
like to think back about that, but I mean,
yeah, it definitely is something that is much closer to all of us, and I think that we care to acknowledge the majority of the time. Do you have thoughts, Sharon, about, I mean, obviously, besides your own lived experience and wanting to participate, what the lived experience could offer or might offer in terms of how we would respond to Mr. Goodrich about his email? Like, do you think that we should, besides your own experiences, like, what are your thoughts?
does he want you to guarantee?
He doesn't want us to guarantee anything. What he asked is that the city is creating this task or this standing committee for homelessness. And he said, I would like your committee, the Advisory Committee for Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Human Rights, to recommend to the council, when you select your members, reserve 3 spots for people with lived experiences.
And I think it would be hard.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, not that, I mean, I just know where I work specifically, probably half our staff, I would, because a lot of us are in long-term active recovery, probably at least half the staff, I would say, have been homeless at one point in their life. So I just don't think it would be as difficult as people think to find people that are what I would consider pillars of the Bangor community that at some point in their adult life have faced either peri-homelessness or homelessness. Are they, I did read through those documents. Were they also looking for, I know it might have been, are they also looking for people that were in long-term substance use? Was that also a thought, or is that not something?
I don't think that came up. I don't think it was that. I think it was just particular to the experience of having, you know.
It's gonna be difficult.
Yeah, thank you. Mark and then Adam.
Would it help in the formation of the committees, the homeless committee, and the affordability committee, would it help to, for us to make a strong endorsement of the existence of those committees, number one, and number two, to reserve 3 slots on the homeless committee for people who have been homeless? Would it help for us to do that to not necessarily guarantee that it's gonna happen, but to make it clear that we think that's important and that should not be overlooked.
That if it's possible, if at all possible.
Right.
I mean, you can't guarantee that these people would come forward and want to join either. I mean,
But the opportunity could be there for them.
yeah, right.
Councilor Beck, how many members were supposed to be on that committee? Do you recall?
We haven't set the number yet. I mean,
Okay.
anywhere from 9 to 15, depending on where it lands.
Okay.
So maybe less though, because then we're splitting it into 2.
Would the formation of this committee be similar to the formation of our committee and others, where people have a 5-minute interview and indicate their desire to be a member? It would be.
Yes, the council could have certainly lengthened those interviews, given the desire to find folks that are well balanced to round out that committee. But yes, the format and everything and how that goes through would be the same.
Thank you. Because I think that that's the question, right? Like, what can we make a formal recommendation? I think you have to decide. Adam.
Yeah. From what I've gathered, because I attend like the council meetings and whatnot, that my own perspective is that the council doesn't want to feel that they're handcuffed in like picking these exact spots and like in the scenario of like, what if they don't find anybody? But I think it's also very important that lived experience people be on this committee, because I feel like in the past, Bangor as a city hasn't had that voice and advocacy as we've seen with like the past sweeps that have happened here and whatnot. And I think at baseline, at least giving high priority to people with lived experience for those spots, I feel like for me is at least a bare minimum. If that all happens, but I also see the side that also like making like these exact slots can be like, could be difficult in a scenario like that. So that's just my thought.
If I may too. Those interviews, as you know, are confidential. And of course, you can't tell immediately when you look at someone whether or not they've experienced homelessness. And so it's also important to keep in mind, I think, that wherever the council lands in terms of what the makeup of that committee is, nobody's gonna be walking around with a label that, you know, I filled this slot sort of a thing or anything like that.
It's like a
So-
chart on the website that says like. Yeah. That is true. Go ahead.
Or the one area I could see that the council could benefit from your advice is, how do we do outreach to people, let them know when this opportunity exists? You know, as far as, you know, making sure that if we want lived experience, making sure the word gets out to everyone that, hey, if you want, apply for this committee. So we have as rich of a pool as possible to pick from.
Just a quick thought. I love the idea. I'm a very firm believer in nothing about us without us. And so I do think like if the goal is to address the homelessness issue, we should have people with lived experience, guaranteed participation in that group.
Yeah.
But I also am thinking about barriers, and this is written a little bit in the email that we received. But even like the initial barrier of applying to be on the committee. What if I don't have a computer? What if I don't have access to Wi-Fi and I want to participate? But what if I don't have transportation and I can't get here for meetings, but I have important information to share? So I do think we should.
Well, I know somebody I can hook them up with that can get them a free cell phone, like I have the resources. I
Yeah.
can help people.
Yeah, and I would love to make some kind of recommendation to council to say, yes, we support. I believe this says at least three dedicated voting seats, 25% plus of an 11 to 15 member body. Explicitly reserved for people with lived experience. I would love to be able to put that forward to council with also the information that we as a group are happy to help facilitate overcoming any barriers that people might experience. We've got a room full of experts right here
Yeah.
who can help connect to resources
Absolutely.
or, even chip in and help provide transportation or, whatever. Like, we're here because we like to help people. So,
Yes.
because I can see where council might say, well, if we're gonna commit to that, then we need to be sure that people are gonna get to the meeting and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So we could say, we could help support that effort and those people.
And I love
Yeah. Thank you, Shane. I agree with that. I think that, obviously lived experience it has so much to offer, right? And being able to provide that feedback, and, really think about it through that lens. That is going to be a very different lens than most individuals will have, even if you do have levels of expertise, serving a specific population, unless you come or have experienced that personally, the lens might be a little bit different. My thought is, like, in terms of, I definitely want to piggyback on what everyone said in terms of how we're able to support the promotion of this group, how to, help individuals sign up, how to make sure that we are, having these conversations so that people are aware of this opportunity. I think that's kind of the one thing that our committee has historically been able to do, which is just like show up in these spaces and pull all of our different resources together to make them, to positively, connect these different, usually siloed communities. My question is, another piece that Shane brought up, and the biggest piece of this, not the biggest piece, one additional element of Mr. Goodrich's email is providing those supports so that there are structures in place if individuals are not able to attend a meeting, like stipends for participation, transportation, other elements that we could help support. Has the council discussed that at all in terms of what that ordinance might include for individuals participating?
No, we haven't.
Do you think that'd be something that would come up?
Again, speaking for myself, but my vibe would be do for one, do for all, right?
That's fine.
No one gets any.
Okay.
Right, so it's kind of a hands-off
Yeah.
for the council kind of way, whereas if other outside organizations can come together, so I know like Penobscot County Cares is another big organization that's spoken up, said we can do phone transportation.
That's who we.
Yep.
So, but if we could get them a phone, then they could do Zoom.
Yeah. Right, and that might be the better vehicle, because then you get into the area of like, well, even though I'm not on house, I have my own needs, and it becomes a mess. And whereas if it's just outside organizations helping folks be able to meet their duty, then probably better. Again, just my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, in terms of, a response, I guess this is also another, probably a question for you in terms of if we were to make a recommendation that we see value in identifying seats, or if we want to further support what the council has already identified as, you know, reserving space for individuals with lived experiences, how would we best go about that in a way that is thoughtful and can be well received without sort of saying, you know, you didn't ask us, but here we are again and we're telling you what to do, in a way that we can be mindful that this work is already happening. Obviously, there's a lot of, you know, brilliant, thoughtful people on the council. We don't want to be an additional voice in an echo chamber, but what can we do to help maybe you usher in these thoughts? If you're going to be a part of those conversations, what is most helpful?
Well, going back to the conversations we've had, the consensus I've gathered is lived experience should be included. And, you know, landed on not putting it into the code, but just making it a goal as part of the interviews. But we haven't landed on a number. You know, I mean, from 1 to 4, we haven't landed on a number. So what, you know, and I hear percentages thrown around 25%, 30% is the one I keep hearing of. You know, and I get it because, you know, the people who are closest to the problem are gonna, you know, they've lived through the policy failures to this point, you know, so we're not repeating the same mistakes. But it would be helpful to hear, you know, especially if there's like established studies that show if you're going to do a body like this, it should be X number of members or X percentage, something with evidence-based as a recommendation. That would be helpful. So that's as far as the lived experience, that would probably be the best advice of here's the number you should shoot for and here's why. And so just something for council to consider. They may not accept it, but you know, at least something evidence-based to think about as we set whatever that goal ends up being.
Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts off the top of their head as to what would be a
I
recommendation?
just think it's difficult because like you said, we don't know how many people are in those.
Yeah.
That's what that makes it hard. That's
Yeah.
what makes it tough. I think it'd be great, like she said, someone that has, I think it's a great idea. Excellent. Hearing, but it's hard to say right now what we should do, not knowing the number. Like, is it gonna be 6? Is it gonna be 9?
Right. Hold on, Mark, go ahead.
I think that we should be talking about a percentage of the committee, maybe 25 to 30%, because if the committee is gonna be 15 and we only have 3 representatives, then that's a much smaller number than if we would do 30%. So I think when we make the recommendation, we should do it in a percentage.
Okay.
I was gonna throw this thought out, you know, we're gonna have this conversation next week, right? 2 weeks. But when's the second?
Yeah, 1 week.
1 week.
Yeah.
February kills me.
Would it be better to wait until council has the conversation and then I can propose during that time, are there questions that we wanna bounce off this committee?
Yeah,
And then, you know, because before this could even, it
yeah,
would be ordinance, it would be 2 readings anyway, so there'd be a chance to amend it and anything.
sure.
And all of that, I mean, it has to get to a first reading anyway. So rather than trying to kind of
That's
beat our heads
what I
about it now, I can just propose it to council and see if they want to ask the questions and then send it back to this committee.
Yeah, that might be a very good idea.
Can I ask, does that mean you don't anticipate that it would go through first and second reading in March? Because if so, that would occur before this committee meets again.
Yeah, because the second would be when the GovOps says move it forward.
Right.
And then the following Monday would be first reading. And then 2 weeks later would be second reading.
Right. And this committee meets the day after that second meeting. I will say this, though, that perhaps another option would be, you guys could certainly vote to make a recommendation with like sort of a an invitation, if you will, to do more research or to dig into anything that the council may wish that you do. You know, whether that's evidence-based or whatever the council feels it needs for consideration. there could be a special meeting. If the council wants more information, both from this committee and other sources, that vote may get actually pushed out anyway. So I think that there's opportunity there. And as it relates to a vote of this committee to make a recommendation, there's obviously lots of ways to do that. In the past, you guys have shown up, done that public comment. We've also just alerted counselors through email that there was a vote of recommendation and here's what it is, and giving a link to the video so they can watch it if they're interested. So there's lots of different avenues that can be super formal, less formal. And obviously opportunity, as Councilor Beck says, for the council to ask specifically this
Yeah.
committee to look at something specific if they wanted to.
Yeah, I agree that that's the best mechanism. Because then it can be a very targeted ask, and the way that we're able to support them, the timing of it is rough, obviously.
Well, I was gonna say though, again, the consensus was though, the council was very receptive to
Yeah.
having lived experience. So really it just comes down to, you know,
Are you gonna do a number or a percentage?
Yeah.
right, but the talk was there of we wanna set a goal, not put it in code, because we don't wanna handcuff ourselves, but we do when we're in the interviews. So really, in my opinion, the best way you're gonna get, the most lived experience is just getting the word out to get people to apply, make sure that, their barriers will be removed if they have them. Because the richer pool we have to pick from when we do the interviews, the more likely we're gonna get
Yeah,
folks with lived experience. And I think that's, gonna be a great way to ensure that is there, as opposed to trying to force it through.
Yeah,
quotas. If it just happened organically, I think that ends up being better because they were the ones that made it through the interview process to begin with, and
I mean, has there been any talk in the committee or rather the council work about there being something in the ordinance that says like preferred, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like there'll be a preferred selection of those with lived experience or something to that.
reference given to,
Something that could say like this sort of, if you have lived experience, that is going to count more in terms of.
ticket.
Huh?
You get a golden ticket.
Yeah, exactly. It's weighted.
earlier in the process when we had competing proposals for that was something I had actually put into my proposal, is saying for that, and I used the metric of 30%. I don't know what the final draft is gonna look like when we see it on the second. Other than, council would just generally have said, we're happy to set a goal as part of the interview process, but if we don't want to handcuff ourselves if we don't get enough. They were willing to come forward and self-identify, That's one of the concerns they got raised as well is,
Right.
some folks may not, self-identify that they have lived experience for one reason or another. I mean, my personal experience, in doing advocacy and stuff, I mean, everyone's willing to wear it on their sleeve if they're doing this work. But, that may not always be the case.
Mhm. That's Mark.
I think in terms of when we make a recommendation, I think that we ought to do it to go to the GovOps committee on March 2nd. I think it would be good for us to get in on the ground floor.
Yeah.
Of this whole discussion, letting folks know what we think and why we think it's important.
Yeah.
So that would be my thought. As opposed to waiting.
Yes, yeah.
To make the recommendation to the council.
So what do we, if we are going to make a recommendation? I think that we have a couple of things that we have to figure out. What are we recommending? Are we choosing a number? I can't help but think in terms of, this is just my own stepping out of the decision-making piece, I just wanna say, if the number makes people uncomfortable, is there a way that we could say, like, whatever that language is, that if you do have lived experience, like, that will, I don't wanna say, it's not gonna guarantee you a spot, but like, that will.
Preference will be given?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, something that like, that way no one with lived experience is being looked over.
I mean, just really quickly, I mean, I know when you apply for like banquet like committees here, it says like a preference to like banquet residents as well. I mean, I feel like that's a simple thing in like the text that we
Yeah.
already do here as the city.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So could our recommendation be whatever the makeup of the committee is, however many members, we would recommend that you include language on the application that says preference given to those with lived experience. And then that leaves the number up to council to decide, but we're still saying we would like you to give preference to this group.
And could we then like, I'm just trying to think of like the best way in terms of like, honestly, like our time and resources, like, do we say, hey, right out the gate, we think that you should absolutely have language that preference is given to individuals with lived experience. Once the ordinance is established, we would love to be able to provide support, resources, help in identifying if a number is needed. Or, you know, in whatever capacity we could provide. Because I understand the many elements that are going into determining how you're going to identify those individuals. I just feel like if you're not going to give a number, you have to give preference. And I feel like it's got to be one or the other. But I also don't want to say that, you know, you guys have been sitting on this and thinking about this and we're coming in and you know what I mean? Like, how do we?
Well, giving preference, I think, also puts us back to the problem of council doesn't want to be handcuffed with it. Like, they want to set the goal, you know, but.
If I made actually, the ordinance for this committee says the council shall work to include members with a wide variety of perspectives and interests on the committee, such as, but not limited to, perspectives and interests of the following, and then there's a list. So, and the idea being that it's guidelines, that they're not looking to check these boxes, but it's sort of like, these are important, like, perspectives that we would like to have on the committee. So maybe that's something that council could consider as part of their conversation.
Yes.
I think we should stay away from the idea of giving preference. Because I think two things would happen with that potentially. One is that folks would feel like we're telling them what to do. That's number one. Number two, if there isn't even a thought on the part of the council that people with homelessness experience would be considered, then I think we're presenting something that the idea probably simply doesn't even exist, that nobody is thinking about giving preference, but perhaps a better way of saying that would be, we strongly suggest that you include 25 to 30% on your committee, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Oh, instead of putting it on the,
Instead of putting it on the
Like on the
application.
yeah.
Okay. So we've got a couple of different things now, and I
So somebody may go even further and feel like we're discriminating against them because they've never been homeless on an application.
know this does feel very.
We just don't
I
know.
know. And even with like the wording of giving preference to, if there are 30 applicants and, you know, a certain number of them are professionals who are like working in support positions, would they be less likely to be picked over someone who just has unhoused experience? It's tough. I like the way that Mark worded it. I think that's probably going to be the cleanest and clearest way to give it to council without it feeling like we're saying, you need to do this, and I think it just would keep it clean.
Katie put something in the chat.
Yeah, okay, thank you, thanks, Katie.
Nobody at home can read that, Justina.
Okay, so Katie's wondering, how do you create criteria to only keep it 30%? Yeah, I agree. I feel like I don't want, like, I think that this is important work and I want to be able to support in any way possible our commitment to helping usher in a committee that's going to have a really, really important task and making sure that council, like we are supporting council in every way possible to identify folks who are going to bring as much to the table as possible. I do think that council is thinking about that. If there's anything that we could do to sort of just add a stamp of approval or additional help, that's what I think that we need to identify. Like what is council waffling on? And can we help push the needle one way or another to help it ensure that individuals with lived experience who choose to participate can be seen as a value asset? Sorry, Katie, I feel like your question spoke to my head and I started talking. Did you want to add on to that comment that you had?
No, I was agreeing with what he said, that no, you just summarized what I was thinking, so.
Nice.
Thank you for planting that in my brain.
So maybe, sorry to interrupt, maybe what we would consider sending to council would be exactly what Mark said, this is what we would like to see, but also an offer to be of assistance in any way. And just as a reminder to council that like we are here, like our job is literally to advise them. Just as a reminder to say, if there's something you get stuck on, or if you have a question, like please feel free, like we're happy to connect you with additional resources or experts, or we can even help do some recruitment of people with lived experience. Whatever it is that you need, we are here, just as a reminder.
That's right, we're an advisory committee.
Yeah. How do folks feel about that? And would this be like a recommendation that we make, like that you would bring forward to the committee, to the council work?
I mean, I can, having an email maybe from the chair would help, that goes out to council, rather than me just, paraphrasing all of this.
Okay. So just that, does anybody else have anything to add? Are we in agreement with what the recommendation will be, which is essentially that we see value in identifying individuals with lived experience on the council or on the standing committee for homelessness, and we will absolutely promote this opportunity to join to folks that we know with lived experience and help, with resources and supports. If there is additional data, research, recommendations needed in terms of numbers, we would like to be included in that conversation. Does that sound good? Is that what we think?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that would be helpful?
Yeah, whatever you advise.
Let me just write a note in here.
I think if the committee is interested in that, there should be a vote
Okay.
in making a formal
Yeah, I
recommendation.
was just gonna ask that.
Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion for this vote?
So moved.
Would anyone like to second?
Second.
Okay, so hold on, I'm trying to keep notes too. Vote. Okay. James. Adam. All right, so let's do a roll vote to make a recommendation to council that we will promote the opportunity and connect with our networks of individuals with lived experience to participate in the council. We see great value in identifying folks with lived experience to serve on the council, and we want to offer our support in terms of if there's data, research, support needed to identify that number. Moved, seconded. Let's take a roll vote. Katie.
Yes.
Thank you. Adam.
Yes.
Suzette.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Yes.
And Katie, yes. Okay. Unanimous passing. All right, so I will write this up formally. I'll watch the video, write down what, because I have like 6 versions here. I'm just gonna highlight this in my notes, and then we will go back and send that recommendation to council. Thank you, everybody. All right. The next piece on our agenda is to approve the minute of January 27th, 2026. Adam, you can abstain from this vote since you were not here for those minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second. Oh, let's give it to Suzette.
No, I is mad, you guys. All right. Any comments, questions, thoughts, feedback? Okay, let's take a roll vote. Katie,
Yeah, yes.
approval. Adam,
Approval.
Yes.
Suzette,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
Yes.
Mark, Shane, Katie. Okay. Sorry, I'm just writing down my notes. All right, so approved unanimously. All right, so the next piece of business that we have is, the current status of our committee. So, as you know, there was conversation about this council, or rather this advisory committee's standing. What we're able to offer the council, how we operate, whether or not, the council should be, or rather the advisory committee should be disbanded, reorganized. That conversation did not make it out of GovOps, but I think that there was still a interest in revisiting what this committee can do in terms of advising city council, how we can best work with city council. And there was, and forgive me if I'm mistaken, but was there originally a workshop scheduled for last night to discuss the council?
Yeah, I was supposed to go on a workshop. I don't remember if it made it to this agenda for tomorrow or not.
Okay,
Well, for Monday, but it's been rescheduled tomorrow. I don't think that the Hager conversation got to that agenda.
okay. So it's not currently on a council workshop agenda.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. I mean, I would love to hear people's thoughts. I feel like it's kind of an elephant in the room to say that there's specific, council members that would like to see maybe a reorganization of what this committee looks like, how it operates.
What does that mean to you?
So I don't know if you have a better sense from a council perspective. I can give my understanding, which is that because we are an advisory committee, what we have not been able to figure out, and this has been 5 years down this road since the establishment of this committee, is are we offering advice that we think is important to bring forward based on our own experiences and networks and work that we do? Or should we be waiting for council to identify, hey, we would like your advice on this, we would like your advice on that? And I do, from my experience on this committee, think that we've done pretty much every iteration of that. Where we are at right now is promoting either different citizen initiatives that come forward or ideas that we hear about in the community and we think are important because of our own networks and our own interest. And so I think that the council was feeling like there was a lot of time that we were spending coming to them, bringing forward different, ordinance recommendations or, legislative directives that weren't really in line with their priorities and what they wanted. And so the question came up, how should this committee operate? Because we have been consistently operating with the directive, with our ordinance and then, with our conversations with city staff and what's a priority. There hasn't been a lot of conversation between council and our committee. We do now have a council liaison. We had sort of an informal council liaison for one year, a couple years ago. But beyond that, there hasn't been any formal mechanism of how should you operate. And so the thought was, and this is my own understanding, that council was like, hey, let's take a pause on this committee and identify how they're operating, what they're doing, what they're bringing forward, what we want from them, what we need from them. And that was presented to the GovOps committee, and the GovOps committee said, no, I think it's fine as is. That said, we could just say like, okay, well, I guess we're good to go then and keep on keeping on, but that I don't think is really in the spirit of the work that we do in terms of wanting to be an asset to the city council, wanting to be a strong partner to the city council. What directives should we be getting? How should we be working with them? And I thought that there was going to be a conversation and a workshop at some point about this committee and what this committee, how it's operating, how it should operate. I have not had a conversation with anyone at the city about it. And so I'm wondering, I want to be transparent that this is happening with our committee. I don't want to pretend like, okay, let's just keep on making ordinances that are not going to go well because people at, the city council level, that's not really what they see from us or what they need from us. I want us to be productive and effective in a way that's going to be received and actually help advance some inclusive, humane, thoughtful, and diverse practices. So I wanted to get people's thoughts. Is this a conversation and maybe to, the assistant city manager or Councilor Beck can say, like, is this something that what are our options too? Like, do we invite the council chair here? Do we have do we ask for a joint meeting? Do we we can't make this decision in a vacuum, but also I can't just say okay, let's just pretend that never happened and keep going because it's just not going to get us anywhere. I do think we need to be at a point where we can look at this proposal, and I'll be perfectly honest. Yeah, of course I want to be yes, we should do this, and we should tell council that we think 25%, and that's going to be great. And they're going to be like, thanks, we were stuck and you helped us. But I don't think that we right now have that relationship, because I think that there is, I do see that, having consistently giving unsolicited advice might come off as very unhelpful. So what can we do to be more helpful, and how do we figure this out? That's what this piece of the agenda is about.
Does it have to be an either or proposition? Couldn't it be structured, just in our thinking, that we're an advisory committee and we will offer advice to the council on various issues that come up. And we would also be very open to receiving a request from the council to discuss a particular subject amongst ourselves and then make a recommendation back to the council. I don't think that we certainly don't want to alienate the council.
No, yeah.
We don't want to come across as we're the folks who know and we're going to tell you what we know what to do. But I think if it's kind of a reciprocal relationship, that might be the most advantageous way to approach this.
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with that. Adam.
I think I've seen what happened through this whole thing and whatnot. I think a very lack of communication is a very apparent thing between both things. I know personally for me, I have to work with the council. I mean, I believe everybody here wants to, and I feel like I can see how they can also see how we're kind of stepping on toes sometimes, or and quoting, we're not quoting, but just maybe just not my own words being annoying sometimes or whatnot. But I just think communication has just been lacking, and I would like to see it more, and I want to work with the council, so.
Yeah,
And also just any clarification, like how we're talking, like what do you want our role to be for you?
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, thank you.
I think one of the things that was brought up too is that there's, because there's going to be the housing and the homeless committee coming up. That I don't know how many committees, Courtney, you might know, how many committees are there? There's kind of a lot, and I think that was part of the reason too, because like counselors, you know, knowing what's going on with all the committees.
Yeah.
That, since those two committees are gonna be created, that then maybe that was an issue, and I think the committee had a trouble finding that forum sometimes, I think that was in the paperwork too, so that's why it was kind of brought up,
Thank
I
you.
believe.
Okay,
I don't know how
yeah,
many committees there are, but there's a lot, you know, if you guys watch them, it's a lot, you know.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
yeah. Thank you.
I just am looking at the ordinance, our ordinance, and subsection 23-44 is our mission. And the very first item in our mission is to develop ideas and information to educate individuals within the organization, which I believe refers to the entire city government structure, staff, council, elected officials, whatever. As well as in the community, focusing on topics of, but not limited to, awareness, sensitivity, equity, inclusion, and diversity. So I hate that we have to feel like we are annoying people when we do that, right? Like when we share ideas or information or advocate, and then we're told we're wasting time, it's not great. And I did have a clarification, because this is what I got in here to look for in the first place. During that meeting, Chair Hawes said that she, as council chair, has the authority to disband us. I don't see that anywhere in ordinance. Do we know if that is actually accurate?
I echo that as well, so.
I can tell you, I'm not an attorney, but my basic understanding is that, it would take a council vote to actually repeal an ordinance. And actually 2 readings to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna second that. The city solicitor ended up confirming that's the case. If you put an ordinance in, it takes an ordinance to get it out.
Thank you.
That's it. Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, so. It's
Oh,
not, it's.
sorry.
No,
I just realized I didn't finish my thought. My thought was, if that's the case, and you know, we want to be useful and we want to be helpful, I do think it's important that we ask either for a joint meeting with council or for them to, you know, workshop and give us some formal guidance before they take action. Like, give us the opportunity to do what you want us to do before you just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I guess that would be my request, that either we all come to the table together and talk about it as a group, or you guys think about what you want us to do and share that with us and give us the opportunity to make those changes.
Yeah, I fully agree with that.
Oh, just gonna say, so as far as I know, at some point there would be a workshop conversation about this. You know, so as far as what the status of the committee is, I'd wait to see what comes out of that workshop. The other thing I was gonna say too, about where things are at, I mean, the only thing that council decided at this point is they voted not to move forward with dissolving the committee. So really, what that leaves you with is, you know, continuing to lean into the ordinance like you looked at it, you know what your mission is. Keep following your mission. When you do give advice, I mean, maybe making sure you mention with that advice per our ordinance, our mission is to, and therefore, you know, just as a reminder, you know, because, you know, there was some concern about, you know, veering off from the mission. Well, this way it makes sure that with every recommendation, here's the part of the mission we're speaking to, but also continuing data-driven advocacy. You know, kind of like what had done with all the surveying that was done during Bangor Pride, and, you know, the different work that came out of that, where you had, you know, real quantifiable numbers that went with the feedback that you'd received. You know, that's helpful when, you know, whenever it's data driven like that. But, you know, also, but going forward too, is a liaison in a strange position because, you know, I don't get emails about, hey, I feel, I'm curious about this, or I'm curious about that, or, you know, so that conversation that happened on the second was kind of caught me off guard too, because some real important things were brought up that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. For example, you know, it was brought up that, you know, the Jewish community has, you know, growing concerns over anti-Semitism. You know, that's something to look further into. That, you know, local Korean and Vietnamese populations are feeling left out. That the seniors facing workforce or housing discrimination. And also family of children with special needs or disabilities. So that was something positive that came out of that GovOps meeting, that, you know, real things from counselors that they're concerned about. So something to keep in the back of this committee's mind of other things to look at.
Yeah. Yes,
I
Susan.
do think too, kind of, in that line, is that, you know, like looking at the calendar here, that there's not like a whole lot of diversity, like including those groups, but also like the Irish Catholics. I mean, they were called the Know Nothings when they built the St. John's Catholic Church, and there's like Maine's supposed to recognize Irish Heritage Day, which is March 17th, and then, you know, other diseases like multiple sclerosis month is in March, and, you know, dyslexia awareness month in October, neurofibromatosis month in May, things like that. Like, there's a lot of things that I just think aren't being recognized, that don't seem like a whole lot of diversity. It seems like I mean, there's a whole month for Pride, but there's not a whole month for many other things. And there's a lot of things here that mostly have to do with sexual orientation more so than maybe a religion or a disease or something. I mean, I'm not saying that they should be excluded. I'm just saying that maybe it should be a little more balanced sometimes. You know, because I mean, you got the information at the Pride, but there's a big.
It's a lot more people to be asking. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is 100% meant to be a working calendar. So I agree that that would be a great recommendation to continue to like look. Cause like, again, because I do feel like we've gone through every iteration possible in terms of what this could look like and how we could operate. There was a time that we were like, okay, well, this is our February meeting, what's coming up March and April that we can really focus on. And so, yeah, opportunities to maybe revisit that as well when we're developing the agenda and being able to make sure that whatever we're looking forward to is really inclusive and robust and not just siloed to specific, different groups, right? And that we're being more thoughtful about that. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you. Okay. So I think that, to your point, I guess my thought is, and based on what I've heard, the council has not yet had a workshop to discuss the future of this meeting, and they may or the future of this advisory committee and the ways that we operate. And they may or may not have a meeting about it, because I do feel like it was on the agenda, but now it's not on the agenda.
I didn't think it, what is the conversation done tomorrow's?
It's not on tomorrow's pre-council workshop agenda. I do think that there's a desire to have a conversation with council about what that looks like. But certainly I think it would be helpful to know if there was a preference by the committee as to, you know, what that may need to look like.
Yeah. I just basically want to make sure that if a meeting is organized, that we are either invited to participate or have an opportunity to share our thoughts either beforehand. And I don't know, again, the best way to go about that. Is that a means of like an open invitation to participate in like we have already a workshop vibe, a workshop setup happening. Is that an opportunity to have a conversation here? Would that be amenable to individuals on the council? Or if there is an upcoming workshop, could we be given ample notice so that we could also participate in a meaningful way?
Yes, certainly. if a date, if or when a date is nailed down where we know that the council will be discussing this, I'm happy to make sure that the committee is made aware of that as far as advance as possible. As far as like inviting counselors to like your next meeting, for example, I don't think that there's anything stopping this committee from extending that invitation. They have a lot of meetings, I couldn't guarantee, you know, that
Yeah.
they may or may not participate, but certainly nothing stopping the committee from extending that invite.
Would there be anything weird if with like the quorum for council, if more than 3 of them or whatever gets together, would it have to be advertised as a joint meeting if we know that they're going to be here?
If we know that there could be a quorum, we would just notice it that way, but I think we're safe either way simply because this meeting is open to the public and publicly noticed. And even, and typically the agenda would have something on it that would allude to the fact that counselors were invited for a discussion. So that would meet the full requirements, if you will, for public noticing.
Great.
Thank you. I do just wanna ask, you know, in the last GovOps meeting, when the decision was, you know, how should the council work with this committee and, you know, how should this committee move forward? There wasn't an invitation extended to anyone from our group to participate in that. And I just wanna make sure if there is a workshop that's planned where this discussion is, even if we are given ample time to attend and sit, like, could we also participate in the conversation? And if that's not something that they're able to prepare for, then I do think it just leaves us with opening our meeting, correct?
Yeah, because really, staff would need to know that the committee was being invited to participate in a meeting ahead of time. Otherwise, we would make you aware like we did last time. It's just that it's up to the council to determine and decide who speaks during those meetings or not.
Right, right.
So, yeah, I mean, from a staff perspective, I think, you know, we would need direction from council if we were to actually post and extend the invitation to this committee to actually participate in one of the council workshops. Otherwise, you're right, I think it would be on the committee to extend that invitation to counselors to come to participate in one of these meetings.
We can get snacks.
Yes, Adam.
I would just be very much open to, again, just having like a joint meeting of the council. So I don't wanna be like blindsided or how I felt like being blindsided like last time, so. And I wasn't even part of the committee at that point, but.
Yeah, I do think that would be, I just to ensure that there's like an opportunity for conversation. Whatever the best mechanism for that is. Do you, Counselor Beck, recommend that we like wait to see how the council wants to proceed, or do you think that offering an invitation?
In my personal opinion, I'd wait to proceed. I'd let council decide. Cause ultimately, you're an advisory council to the your advisory committee to the council. And that's a conversation council needs to have about what advice they're looking for and what mechanisms they wanna go for. You know, same as they created the ordinance themselves,
Yeah.
you know, they need to decide together, is this committee serving what they need and what changes, if any, need to be made? So I'd start with letting them have the conversation, or letting us have the conversation.
I would just say sort of in line with that other recommendation the committee made earlier, if you wanted the council to consider even if it was something like just making the committee aware or asking to the table or participating here, you know, there's nothing stopping you guys from making a recommendation or an ask that be considered and could be passed along the same way as you intend to pass along the other recommendation. otherwise it would be, hopefully at the next meeting, Counselor Beck or I would have an update, hopefully with some sort of direction coming from the council as to what they would like to see.
Okay. So you're saying with these two ideas, could we send an email essentially and say, we would like to be, should the council decide to have a workshop about how our advisory committee can best work in partnership with the council, we would like to be included. Okay. What are people's thoughts on that?
And you think we should just wait and see what happens?
It's just my opinion. I could just, because again, the conversation has a potential to get kind of awkward, because this is a committee that's trying to exist and do this work, and council has a different opinion about how that work should be done. And I think that we kind of have to get our own internal messaging straightened out first before we're investing your time into it as well. Because I think you saw at the GovOps meeting that there was a wide variety of opinions on it. And, again, my consensus is the majority because all the council was there, the majority are supportive of this committee. But as far as the direction, as far as how do we want the advice, do we want to be able to individually reach out for advice, or do we have to have a certain mechanism for that? All of those questions are what we really need to answer for ourselves.
Yeah.
We shouldn't jump the gun just yet,
I mean,
maybe.
again, I don't want to tell this committee what to do or not to do, but I guess my opinion, I would wait to let council have that conversation. Because then based on what comes out of that conversation, then it could be a conversation with the committee that says, okay, well, based on what you're looking for, this is how we're able to best serve that mission. Or here are some changes we would recommend to help facilitate that, as opposed to, in all fairness, council doesn't even know what it really wants right
I agree with you, Michael. I think that if we were to make a request for a joint meeting, we'd have to have a very good reason for doing that. And we'd have to let the council know why we are requesting this. I think waiting till the council has had some deliberation about this is the better idea. Because we'll be taking direction on the manner this committee will operate from the council, and then it becomes an open discussion.
Yeah, it's like that fine balance of like, how do we demonstrate our commitment to partnership and patience? It's probably not by jumping the gun and but I do think that voices at the table is so important in larger decision making. I guess the question is, does anyone feel the need to make a vote to recommend a meeting with council or make a recommendation for an invitation?
I think that's the point.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay, all right. Last piece, as always, on our agenda, is the language access plan. This guy never leaves us. And this has been included in the packet. And I do think that this could be a pretty quick conversation, truly.
Line.
Huh? What would you say?
Language line.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think what we need to decide, right, is that this has come up, this is a conversation that we've had started multiple times, which is that at least the individuals that were serving in the last term found a lot of value in helping Bangor be more accessible to folks who do not speak English. And what could that look like in terms of, how we support the staff and how we are able to use our own resources and networks to make it so that Bangor is honestly more accessible, easier to get around. You know, you can come to City Hall and be able to read the signs and what you're looking for. I think what we need to determine is, and there are examples of language access plans in your packet. There are examples of like how other cities manage it. I think for us is just determining, is this something, I guess, like what do we do in terms of, you know, are we gonna make a recommendation? And I guess this is my big question, right? Like, could we make a recommendation to the staff to start keeping data on how many languages that they encounter, how many barriers they encounter with folks? Or can we, you know, invite individuals to our conversations that might have more of a pulse on the different language and the needs? Like in a perfect world, I would say, well, we can't really identify what language needs there are until we talk to staff, but it's definitely not in our purview to tell staff to like start keeping notes for us.
You would
start
need
collecting
that data to even make a recommendation, in my opinion, because
Did you say you would or would not?
You would.
Okay, I thought you said
100%.
you not. I was like, oh, go on.
Please. You would need to know that.
Yeah.
What are how often are they incurring these difficult challenges, and what is the diversity? How many, you know, is it 3 different languages? Is it 5? Is it 100?
Yeah.
Because the hospitals both are using something called Language Line. It's a program, it's an app that you only pay when you use it.
Yes.
There are other programs that you pay a lump sum annually, but it's probably like $10,000 versus like $3 a minute, or you might pay less if you use it more often, that kind of thing. But I mean, there's always a Google Translator, but this is like guaranteed actual translators in the program. It's basically you select English to Spanish or English to Russian or whatever the language is. And, you know, you have them select the language from pictures. And then if they know the language, they can press it on the thing, and then they talk, it translates, you talk, you know, and so you can just sit there and have a whole conversation, you know, but that's just one of many that but if they're not to that point, you literally might use a Google Translator. I don't know. I mean, but the hospitals found that they did have, of course, people could be getting sick from all over the place, right? People fly in, get sick, you know, so I know both of the hospitals are both using Language Line because they only pay for it when they use it. So as far as I know, that's what they've been using. But again, without having
the data.
I don't know that in my opinion, I don't think you could make a suggestion other than collect some data and or ask questions.
Courtney, do you know if right now we do any kind of tracking like that or record keeping?
No, I mean, anecdotally, I've asked, you know, from front level staff and things like that. But which actually collecting that sort of data here at City Hall is pretty easy to do. As soon as you get into the outside departments, like public safety and stuff, that's a little harder to capture that. So I think, I mean, I'm happy to kind of kick off the conversation on my side. In fact, we're having a department head staff meeting next week. So I'm happy to kind of get a sense anyway of what the department's heads are hearing and you know, if they've heard from their folks, you know, if there's a particular area or language or anything like that, just as maybe a starting point. And I can also chat with the department heads that oversee the offices here at City Hall as well, because I do think that would be a lot easier for our staff to track that sort of information here, which could be ongoing for a little while to see. But anecdotally, what I've heard is that we do get folks that English is their second language, but in their experience, most of the time, if they're patient enough, they can communicate well enough to get their needs met. And the folks that can't often bring a translator with them. You know, whether that's because they know we don't have a translator or don't wanna risk it, I couldn't tell you. So yeah, we can certainly at least get some, a starting point, information for a starting point, if that's
Yeah.
helpful.
I read through it, but I just think that, I don't know when this was written, but there's so much technology now that you can even just pick up into something and it translates a document for you. So, and I did speak to someone that's in the school system and they said there's just so many things on the phone, they just use the apps. So I just thought, you know, with everything being kind of tight with money, that I thought probably not needed because I don't know, unless somebody hears something else, but I just
Yeah.
thought there's so much every day now with technology.
Yeah, that is true. I'm thinking about folks that like don't call public safety or don't come to City Hall because they don't have, you know, that they're not able to speak the language and they don't have, you know, access to a device. You know, in terms of accessibility, I think it's just really important that we're thinking about the folks that we're not seeing and they're not here because they don't have those opportunities. And I do know that I've had lots of conversations with one of the program managers at the Maine Multicultural Center. And that's like a big thing is that families don't go out. They don't, you know, come to City Hall or call for public safety or, you know, go to their students, you know, staff meet or IEP meetings or whatever it is because of the language barrier. And if determining that need is obviously always the hardest thing. That's why we have no data on so many individuals that are like in a protected class because being able to self-identify is such a hard thing to grasp. And I don't want to definitely spend our resources and time barking up a tree that isn't going to serve multiple individuals. But I do think it's important to keep in mind, like, what are the little things we could do? And that's why this first came up, right? It's like, when we started this conversation, we were talking about how when you're at the doctor's, there's that little sign that says basically in every single language, like, do you need, you know, a translator? You know, and it says it in literally every language. And like, we were thinking in terms of the accessibility for our agendas, right? Like if you want to participate in a public meeting and you need a translation and you need translation services, like how would you even know that? It doesn't say it on anything. Why, you know, and again, how would you even know that if you wanted to go speak and it's not, you know, in a language that you're comfortable with? So identifying what those needs possibly could be and how we could help support it, not so much to like create a whole new department or like create all these new training resources, but what little elements are there in terms of identifying what the issues are. And I think that starting with the staff meeting would be super helpful because I also think that there's probably a sense in a lot of those departments of folks that they're not seeing. You know, it's just like, it makes me feel like, I don't know, I think about our schools and how many students are in our schools where their families don't speak, you know, are not, you know, maybe as proficient in English, and so they miss the sign up for Parks and Recs basketball. You know what I mean? Or like, what opportunities are folks in the city missing because we're not thinking about ways that we could just make it easier for even their kids to participate, right?
Does the school have information about the children in the system and what languages they speak?
Yes.
Cause presumably their families at home would be speaking other languages, right?
Yeah, we have a list of what languages everything needs to be translated into.
Yeah.
So that's obviously also a really good place to start in terms of collecting information. If those like the children are in the school, then their parents live in Bangor, right? Like,
Yeah.
that would also be a really powerful place to start in terms of data collection.
And in school and IEP meetings, if a family needs to have a translator, they can request it of the school, and then the school will provide somebody to come in and sit in on the meeting and translate for them. So it seems to me that the issue is not so much having the different languages lost my train of thought here.
I think I know exactly where you're going.
Not having the languages available, but the issue really more is how do you get to the people who are not connected to an institution like a hospital or a school
Yeah,
to know that some services could be available to them?
yeah. That is, I think you're exactly right. I think that is the issue. And so I think in terms of like our work and the ways that we're able to support this, obviously, you know, I'm happy to talk to folks at a school level in terms of language. I think bringing it up with the department heads. But I do like, would people be interested if we were able to? I know that we had reached out to some individuals at the Maine Multicultural Center like a couple months ago before. I don't know, it seems like every month gets swamped with new things. But there was definitely an interest from the Maine Multicultural Center in terms of like coming to speak with us about ways that maybe we can, again, just help connect like what resources are available. If someone from that, you know, organization were to come and say, yeah, we have all these resources, but we don't know where families are, like, oh, maybe you work with, you know, some families that could benefit from this, or, you know, you have a network of folks that could benefit from this. Like, what are ways that we could help just extend this? And maybe I would be really interested personally to hear from them if they were like, oh yeah, Bangor's hard to navigate for these reasons, then how could we maybe help bridge that gap or identify ways that we could more easily support awareness? Because you're probably right, Suzette, it's probably not like, let's create a whole new department and a bunch of resources and spend money. It's more, what are the actual needs? And how could we go about that? And again, I think a language access plan is great and honestly really easy, but it's not in our purview to tell the city to create one. So like maybe having some data and ways that we can better support that might be a good place to start. So would folks be comfortable if I mean, I'm happy to reach out to the Maine Multicultural Center and see if there's some information that they would be able to either bring to our meeting or want to share with us? Is this something that or maybe we don't want to, maybe we just want to dump this thing and not pursue it anymore. What do folks feel?
I personally would like more information before I truly like make a full decision. So
Yeah.
that's just me.
Okay.
Is the goal of the, you know, maybe non-citizens to become citizens, because then they would have to learn English, like, because the requirement of citizenship is English civics to pass tests on basic English, reading, writing, and speaking. So, I mean, I think that's probably all their goals, right? So they want to be working towards that. So I want to encourage them. I mean, I'm not saying don't, but I think there's so much on with AI and apps and all that, but that their end goal is probably to become a citizen. So, you know what I mean? So long term goal.
Right. But if folks, you know.
Yeah, but I'm not saying like, but I just think there's so much, because I see people with their phones and like they're saying stuff and it's telling them what language is better. You know? So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just one point, I mean, not everybody has a phone or technology is what we're even not necessarily has a phone or technology, but isn't literate in technology a lot, especially when I think about like like some of our older population as well, not to put it like that, but like sometimes just a variety of people, sometimes technology is just not for them sometimes. And I feel like that's a barrier as well.
Yeah. I think just figuring out, are there barriers that we could better identify and help break down, you know, if that's something.
I think it would be helpful before we like commit to diving into this full scale, just to hear, especially like from Courtney's group of managers, like, is this even a thing that people are experiencing right now?
Yeah.
Like, is it worth our time to develop all of this? And, you know, thing wouldn't have to go through council, so. Cause it's just a staff thing, but like,
That's
is it
true.
needed right now?
Yeah.
And if not this level, is there anything small scale that we could do to make changes, like even just getting, those little signs that say, if you need an interpreter in like all the different languages.
Are you comfortable, just trying to test the waters, get the feel
Yeah, I'll certainly, I don't know to what degree I'll have in time for the next meeting, but I'll certainly have something to share, if nothing else from the department heads. And then I am curious, whether that's public safety or like even Parks and Rec, what they're experiencing, in their day to day. So
Yeah.
I'll certainly gather some of that information and talk to the next meeting.
yeah,
I definitely look forward to hearing some of that, just
yeah,
to see,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, and I can also just, in terms of the school department, see if there's anything that they're noticing too, in terms of like what people might not have access to. Cause you're right, like I see the phones in schools all the time with parent meetings, just makes me think about like what parents aren't here, So, and maybe
I'm
they're,
surprised
maybe they're.
the school doesn't use something.
They use.
They do,
They do,
yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
figured they would have to, I mean.
Yeah,
Because to be honest, even using like a Google translator, they're not what people think they are, if you've ever tried to use one. Cause obviously we're a very small facility, it's not very often that we get somebody who English isn't their first language. Well, no, but they don't speak English, I'll put it that way, even as a second language, but it has happened, and it is frustrating trying to communicate with them, so even the translate, it's hard, it's not like what the hospital is, it's not that
Yeah.
easy.
yeah.
So you're sitting there, hold on, I have to press another button. What, hold, you're like, yeah, it would
Yeah.
be, it's tricky.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, and it works, but not
yeah,
that easy, so
all right,
it's the job done.
right? Okay, well, I think we have some good discussion points for our next meeting. Is there anything pressing in terms of a liaison update?
Council celebrated Black History Month.
Oh,
Which that was nice to do, and I guess relevant to this committee, the council has unanimously accepted your report. So celebrate, there were no problems there. We also passed an order that established our city council priorities for the year. And the top three were homelessness, housing, and regional cost sharing.
Oh, nice.
The three. I mean, there's obviously other areas to work on as well, but those are the top three.
It's a nice
And we already touched on, we did a lot of work on the housing and homelessness committee, and now we've, kudos to staff, we've been putting staff on the hamster wheel with, hey, we gotta do this affordable housing, committee, here's the second draft, and can you marry these two together? And like, oh, you know what, hey, why don't we split them in half? So appreciate all the work staff's put into, doing that, because we've definitely been putting them through the ringer. And then I guess the only thing is, I know this council or this committee did work in asking for or advising on the resolve last council session for 287G agreements.
Yeah.
We did have a workshop. There was actually two ordinances that were put through regarding, immigration enforcement, everything. One ordinance had to do with face masking and, banning folks from wearing face masks. And then hiring practices, that was voted down. And then there was another ordinance put through that has to do with basically complying with 1971 early, but also put into code that we don't do 287G agreements. And we need a judicial warrant for cooperation, except for in cases of serious crimes. That one did pass out a workshop 5-4. That gets a first reading tomorrow.
Great, that's great news. Congratulations. Awesome.
good work.
Yeah, great work. Thank you. Thanks for that update. Any questions?
I have a question, sorry. Do you know if there'll be a proclamation in March for Women's History Month? I don't know that Bangor has done one before, but with a,
For Women's History Month?
yeah,
I don't know if there will be, but I mean,
Council
this-
Chair Hobbs might be interested in.
you never know. Yeah, I mean.
I think we've got a great
I guess I would.
female
before I
leadership
ask
structure.
about that,
Marnie,
I guess
Carolyn.
Before I ask that, I mean, I
Sue.
guess I would say that, does this committee recommend that? I don't know, if someone makes a motion on that, and you want, right before I ask for it, I don't know if that's something this committee is interested in seeing happen.
Did I just open a can of worms?
Multiple sclerosis awareness month and Irish Heritage Day. Real bunch of other things too.
Do a proclamation, here's March, with stuff happening.
March, all the things are happening.
But yeah, that's all I got.
Right.
Just a quick comment, just thank you, Counselor Beck, and all the counselors who have supported this committee as well. So I just wanted to echo that for myself to you. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Good sentiment. Member Baker, thank you very much, Counselor, for your work and support.
And answering all of our hard questions all the time. We appreciate you.
All right. Without any further questions or comments, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Second,
Second.
are you, have to vote?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.